Hi, everyone. The anxiety professor back this week with a little bit of a more in-depth conversation about the difference between worry and anxiety disorder, and the various anxiety disorders. There are some that are more common than others. I'm not going to cover them all, but I will go over the basic ones. There's no such thing as basic anxiety disorder, but the more common ones. And I'll discuss some that we see more often or not, but I'll try to make it really clear what the difference is. So as we can see here, when we're talking about worrying, and it's something I think we all do as human beings, you think of it in terms of you may be somebody who worries often, but it doesn't get in the way of your daily activities and responsibilities in life. So you may worry about traffic. You may worry about there being a lot of traffic or having to go on a highway where you find cars go really fast and they tailgate and they weave in and out of traffic, and that worries you to think about driving in that traffic, but it doesn't stop you from going. It doesn't make you have a hard time breathing. It doesn't make you start sweating. You just have a worry about it, and you're able to control your worrying by using some cognitive structuring. You are able to tell yourself, I will just take my time. I'm not going to be pressured by anybody. There's a lot of people that travel on this highway. Whatever it is that you're able to tell yourself, you're really able to control your worrying. It doesn't get out of hand to the point where you're not going to go to the place where you have to go. It can cause mild emotional distress, in particular if you're worrying constantly. So if you are somebody who's known as a worrier, but they usually generally tend to revolve around realistic concerns. So it's usually because the highway that you're traveling on, that you feel pressured on that highway to drive a certain speed or to keep up with traffic. So it's not something that's out there in the abyss. It's a realistic concern. Also, worrying can trigger problem solving. So if you know that your partner lost their job, this is cause to worry. This will make you try to figure out, okay, what are we going to do to compensate for the lost wages? Is there anything we can do? Did he get packaged or she get packaged out? What can we do? Can we cut? Can we budget and save money? So it triggers problem solving. It's not just a feeling you have and you end up going around and around in circles because it's not something that you could control. It's usually limited to a specific number of concerns, again, or a very specific realistic situation. It does not tend to last for long periods of time. So if you worrying about the traffic, you're going to think about it, and then you sort of convince yourself, you know what, I have to do it, so I'm just going to go and drive safely, and then you get on with it. It is cognitively uncomfortable, so it may cause you to think things that you don't want to think, or it may take away from your having enjoyment of something. So it doesn't feel comfortable. The thoughts aren't comfortable, but it doesn't go into feelings of any sort of physical feelings. Over here, when we're talking about anxiety, the worrying, it really can go to the point where it's disrupting your life. Okay, it's disrupting your job. So as in the example I gave before, you will actually not be able to get in your car and drive. Maybe it's to your friend's bridal shower or your friend's birthday party or a night out with your friends, and you're looking forward to it, but then as it comes closer, you're starting to go over all these scenarios where you see it ending in your death on the road, and you will not do it. Okay, it can have to do with your social life, your job, activities, going for a bike ride, what have you. Okay. It tends to be uncontrollable worry. You are constantly thinking about it if you have something coming up. I'll give you an example. Someone I know was supposed to go across the border for an event, and they were really looking forward to it. And then they had to start thinking about filling out forms for COVID and making sure that they got their vaccination passport and their American all in order. And then they started thinking about, well, what if they don't let me? It got out of control. One thing led to another, and before you know it, they were thinking that they were never going to get to come back home. It grew from a little worry to a bunch of little worries balled up together into a lot of anxiety that resulted in this person not going to the event that they were really looking forward to. It's a lot of the worry and anxiety. I mean, when it's anxiety, it's not really specific, and it really can touch any and all parts of your life. So when we talked about with it just being worry, it's usually related to realistic concerns. And anxiety, a lot of times it's not specific. You just feel this doom and this gloom. You just feel like anything bad can happen at any moment. Okay. And so what happens as a result of constant worry is that you can develop, or we develop, a habit of expecting and planning for the worst at all times, which, as those of you who experience a lot of worry and anxiety understand, that it's really energy draining and energy zapping. Um, Now, for it to reach a clinical level of anxiety, so you're really having problems, you're burnt out at work, you can't go to work because you experience anxiety around work, and you go to see your doctor or see a psychiatrist, then it has to have been occurring almost every day for at least 6 months. Okay. And then here's one that's really an identifier between the two, and is that anxiety tends to be cognitively very uncomfortable and also very physically uncomfortable. As we know, those of us who do deal with anxiety and the management of it, sometimes we can't breathe, our hands get sweaty, we get jittery, we start shaking. Sometimes we feel like we might pass out. We have a lot of gastrointestinal issues, cramps, diarrhea, and so physical manifestation of the worry. Okay. And then in the middle, what they have in common is that it's very difficult to be present if you're worrying all the time, if you're suffering from anxiety, it's hard to be present. Both can impact your quality of life. Both can be time and energy consuming, and both are causing emotional stress. Now, there are anxiety disorders. So if you go and your doctor may diagnose you, or a psychiatrist may diagnose you, there are several types of disorders. There's panic disorder, and that is a really intense period of being in fear, thinking that you are going to die. You are very convinced. You may have a pounding heart. You're sweating profusely. You're trembling. A lot of people will pass out. I have passed out when I was triggered by a certain smell. I've passed out several times. Not recently, but when I was first dealing with anxiety and anxiety disorder. And one of the symptoms in the panic disorder I can relate to. So I didn't have panic disorder, but sometimes if you have a panic attack, one that I really relate to is I feel like you are just losing your mind and going crazy. And there's a huge fear of dying. You can also get a numbness and tingling sensation. Then there's social anxiety. So that is an anxiety that's really specific to social settings, okay? Where you feel like people are watching you, you have a very huge fear of being rejected socially. You are going to avoid social situations because they cause you to feel incredibly uncomfortable. So that's anxiety related to a social setting. And then there's generalized anxiety disorder, which um, is worrying about a variety of topics. It can be anything, it doesn't matter what it is, you will find a way to be anxious about it. Um, it can cause irritability. You can feel fatigued, have, sore muscles, a really difficult time concentrating. You're very edgy and restless. And those are particular symptoms of anxiety disorder. Um, so there is a manual where a psychiatrist or doctor or psychologist may diagnose you. But these are all, this is DSM-5 is where they're going to look into to see if you meet the criteria for a diagnosis. But these are all different types of anxieties that fall under anxiety disorder. Like I said, there are many different varieties of anxiety. These would be the most common. Um, Probably many people, including myself, have a touch or more than a touch of these. And then many of us are worriers as well. So it's important to understand the difference. And the more, I'm back on the full screen, the more you understand, the more you can go and find the resources to help you. It can help to know, what, I don't really stress about everything, but when it comes to doing something or being social or anything that's involved with being in a social setting, I feel a lot of anxiety. Or you may say, okay, I'm certainly not dealing with any sort of social anxiety, but I feel like I tend to get overwhelmed with simple things. And a lot of people are telling me that, I need to calm down or what have you, the wonderful things that people try to say to help you. And then, you can also look at that thin line and say, okay, I'm a worrier. I worry a lot. I don't want it to go down the line, and I need to start finding some tools to help me manage my worrying thoughts or my constant worrying thoughts or my anxiety. That's it for today. Thank you for joining me. I am Lori Bedard, the anxiety professor, and we'll see you next week when we will talk about dealing with the belief that worry is a good thing. Thank you for joining me.